Ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Optimize Your Body podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I want to really talk about why you could be really overcomplicating things when it comes to macros and calories and tracking food. There's pros and cons, but it's not going to get you to that next level, right? A lot of you listening to this may be in a position where you're like, look, man, I'm in motion. Most of you, you're tuned into my podcast. You're probably growth-minded. You're probably in motion with your training and your health, but you're not where you want to be. And tracking calories and macros is a great tool. Don't get me wrong. But I was actually in the worst shape of my life when I was tracking calories and macros, right? I was reflecting on this recently, and I'm going to go deeper into this anyway. But I also wanted to let you know that I'm going to be giving 3 people this week a free metabolic assessment, right? You're never going to be able to get the results that you want to get and get sustainable results without knowing where your metabolic health is at, right? Health is the foundation, and you need to know where your metabolism is at. A lot of people, they're stuck because their metabolism is not optimized. And when you optimize your metabolism, develop your metabolism, and fix what might be broke on a level of hormones, on a level of metabolic rates, and your kind of where you're at in your journey, essentially, then you're never going to be able to really get the results that you want. So all you got to do is fill out the form, basically, in the show notes. And I'm going to give 3 people a free metabolic assessment. And what that would entail is us potentially jumping on a call to run through a game plan, quick 15-minute call to run through a game plan in terms of what you need to do with your nutrition and training to get to where you want to go, right? So this is unbelievable, right? That I'm giving this for free. I know you're thinking, what? Click the link in the show notes, and only the first 3 are going to get it. So anyway, moving forward, my experience. I started tracking originally in 2014, right? And that's when I was actually competing. I did my first show in 2013. And then I thought, you know what? I want to get to the next level of my awareness with nutrition, with macros, with calories, and everything else. And it's an incredible tool. Don't get me wrong. It's an amazing tool. It really, what gets measured can get managed, right? You're never going to know what to do. You're never going to know what you're consuming. You're guessing unless you have the awareness, right? So it was great for that. And I actually tracked on and off for about 6-7 years, if I'm honest. But what I said earlier, right? I was actually in the worst shape of my life when I was tracking. For example, when I used to struggle with binge eating, I would track everything, right? I was super kind of almost obsessed with it and meticulous with the tracking. One day, for example, even on Christmas Day, I had 7,000 calories, right? And I tracked it all. And when I used to binge eat on the weekends, I was eating, my kind of thing was on a Saturday night, I would stay in, I would watch some fucking whatever on TV, and I would stuff my face with a Domino's pizza, Ben and Jerry's ice cream, and Domino's cookies. Don't try this at home. I'm not glorifying it, right? I would put away about 4,000 calories, right? Just in one sitting in the evening alone. And then the next day I would be tracking, and I would cut back. I would fast the next morning. Then I would have one light meal. And in the evening, I'd probably eat like some shit again in the evening, right? And that pattern repeated itself for a number of years, well, maybe 18 months to 2 years, right? And that goes to show that, again, it goes back to the numbers game, right? It's almost like investing. This is a good example to use when you're investing, right? There's a great book on this, Psychology of Money. Changed my mindset around it, right? If it was as simple as, for example, okay, just invest every month, because that's what it is, right? Invest every month. Look at Warren Buffett, right? Boom. Invest every month. Make it a habit. And obviously, compound effect, naturally, you're going to be in a better position in terms of your wealth than what you would be if you kept that money sitting in the bank, right? And it's the same as food. People think, right, I want to get into great shape, so I'm going to hit the macros, hit the calories. As long as I know what to do with the numbers, I'm going to get there. Unfortunately, you're not, right? You can get in good shape. Don't get me wrong, by tracking, you can get in great shape, but you're never going to get to that next level where it's automatic with your decision with food. It feels easy to stay in great shape all year round, and your physique is the byproduct of you having that solid foundation with your metabolism. So that's developed, which I'm going to touch on. And your relationship with food is basically bulletproof. So you cannot basically go backwards. Yes, you might have a few wobbles, but it feels really easy. And that's called intuitive eating, right? And that's when I got to the black belt level, that was from not tracking, from being aware, being mindful, and ultimately working on my relationship with myself and my mental and emotional health. Because your relationship with food really says more about your relationship you have with yourself than it does anything else, right? So going back to where I was at, what it did teach me, it taught me weighing my food, right? That was a game changer, because actually weighing your food helps you understand about portion control. For example, I couldn't believe it when I weighed like a sweet potato for the first time, right? I weighed it and I'm like, wow, raw weight, of course, because that's always more accurate. I was like, I cannot believe that that looks like way less than 300 grams, right? And then I started understanding, wow, portion control. So if I have 300 grams of sweet potato, that actually doesn't look like much on the plate. I mean, it's a decent amount, but, or 200 grams like I was having that one time. I would naturally eat like 500-600 grams when I wasn't tracking, and then like, look, there's worse things to overeat than potato, right? But it's just an example of having that awareness in terms of what it looks like. So then I realized, wow, then I can kind of eye up my portions and get more of an understanding of how to control my portions and not just go all out with everything every time I eat and just expect to be in great shape, right? But that really didn't get me to that next level of leanness, right? It kept me stuck in a way, but it wasn't the tracking that kept me stuck. It was obviously the behaviors, but it just goes to show that that was the most meticulous I was with tracking, other than when I was actually competing, of course. And I was the most out of shape I've been, right? So you can never kind of out track, right? Emotional eating, all or nothing mentality, cravings that you battle with that keep you stuck, right? You can never out track these things. All data is good data. I'm big on data, but it's not going to get you there, my friend, right? And it becomes a crutch instead of a solution, right? So it's a good starting point, and I think it's essential for most people to have that as a starting point. But if you've been tracking for a long time and you feel like you're spinning your wheels and you're not really maybe building the muscle you want to build, or dropping the fat you want to drop, or getting your body to respond, or getting to that next level of leanness, and you feel like you're carrying more fat than you want to be all year round, then obviously something's missing, right? And the real problem really is the fact that clients, I'm going to give you some examples of clients, right? Clients who track versus clients who don't track, right? Now, my goal is always to get my client to a level of automatic decisions. So where they get to a place where they no longer have to fucking rely on an app to track their food. No one wants to be getting an app out to track their food every time they eat for the rest of their life. Now, some people enjoy it. And for example, funny enough, I actually tracked yesterday for the first time since I think August last year, right? And I just wanted to shine a light on where I'm at. And I'm going to do that for a week now just to see where I'm at and just kind of recalibrate. And there's a lot of value to it, because even the level I'm at now, like I say, black belt with eating habits and nutrition, even I'm going to be out a bit, right? If I was to guess the calories I'm having without tracking, I'm probably going to be out by 300 to 500 calories a day. And like I say, I track for like 6-7 years. So that awareness is always a great tool. And look, studies do show you're going to eat 10 to 20% less in general when you track. But when I look at clients, I want to get them to a place that I'm at, right? Where they don't have to track. They don't have to rely on tracking. They basically are mindful enough to be able to eat without tracking, eat the calories and the nutrients that their body needs to be able to maintain or continually make progress. And they're eating whole foods primarily because they have broken the desire or the addiction, let's just say, to a lot of UPF, right? Ultra processed foods. And they naturally want to eat those whole foods, and they enjoy all their meals, which is where I'm at now. I love the foods that I eat. People get a misconception and they think that I don't enjoy the foods that I eat. Love every single meal I have. There's not a meal I have that I don't enjoy, right? So that's where I like to get my clients at. And then, okay, they want to dial things in. Great. Now we can bring tracking back in as a tool so you can basically get leaner, right? It's a great tool to use to get leaner. And I know what would happen now if I track for like 3 to 4 weeks. I know naturally I'll get leaner. Even after one day of tracking yesterday, I actually thought to myself, right, if I just eat 3,300 calories, I can be in a little bit of a deficit. Right? That's probably about a 10% deficit. Maybe I'll challenge myself to do that. So I could get lean short term, but that's not going to be the answer. Just because you can track your calories, right, and go, oh, wow, naturally start eating a bit less because you're aware. Even I would get the same thing now. That doesn't mean I'm going to maintain that. I could drop a little body fat initially, but then where do I go from there? Stay on those lower calories forever? If I do that, my metabolism adapts and slows down, becomes more efficient with calories. And then I have to take my calories down, right, to get leaner. So, and that becomes a problem because you can't restrict and restrict and restrict and get leaner and leaner without getting to a point where it becomes I can't do this no more and I can't adhere to it, right? So look, it doesn't answer the question. It doesn't solve the problem that you're facing now, which is going to be a few different factors. The all or nothing, right? So with clients who track, they get the understanding, they build up an understanding of exactly what works for their body. That's one of the main benefits, right? Is understanding. I'm going to talk about the benefits actually when I've gone into the main problems, right? Macros and counting that for clients, yes, is a great tool, but it doesn't change behaviors, right? That within itself is not going to change behaviors. If anything, tracking for a lot of people disconnects them from the hunger signals. If you look at where I was at when I was binging and stuff, right? I was going against my body's signals, the amount I was eating. I knew that. Obviously, I'm not stupid, but I kept doing it anyway. And then I was disconnected from the hunger signals because I was overeating all the time and just focusing on numbers, right? Great. Like, it's not going to serve you long term. So when you get disconnected from hunger signals, then what happens is you're less mindful of what your body actually needs. And then you're trying to hit these numbers, right, of a certain amount of protein and calories, which serves a purpose, but that doesn't really get you to the root cause. The root cause for why you're probably stuck now and not getting to the next level is, number one, stress or emotional eating, right? We talk about this all the time, but we can't run away from this. And until you fix that and you understand the triggers and you understand, okay, why am I doing this every single weekend, right? Why am I doing this every single? And when you understand the why, that still doesn't necessarily fix it, right? Then it comes down to, what's my strategy? Okay, I know I'm emotionally eating every weekend. I know when I go out for food with my partner, I'm eating like an asshole. I know I keep doing this on repeat every weekend, and then I keep saying I'm going to start again Monday, and the same story repeats itself. And I'm spinning my wheels, right? But then it gets down to a point, okay, what's the strategy for this, right? The problem is you're over-restricting, right? So over-restricting, tracking your calories and macros, but not getting the results you want. What is that telling you? That's telling you something needs to change, right? So the likelihood is, number one, you need to develop your metabolism, right? And basically take a different approach with food and nourish your body and fuel your body more specifically for building muscle and speeding your metabolism up, so you can get away with more calories and balance your hormones out and get to the next level, where that naturally then over time helps you change your decisions with food, because you feel more satiated and you naturally start having a less desire to eat as much when you're eating more whole foods. You're actually consciously eating more whole foods. You're getting it right with your macros and calories. Obviously, that does matter, of course. And you're basically building muscle, building metabolism, so you can get away with more food and stay in better shape, right? So that's the key thing here. And then the over restriction that you're doing is going to continuously lead to rebounds, right? So you don't know what you don't know. And you might think you figured your body out, and you probably have to a certain level. You figured out what your maintenance calories are by tracking, right? That's a great thing. You know, I'm eating this much food on average each week and I'm maintaining my weight. Congratulations. You figured out what your maintenance calories are, but you haven't figured out where your metabolism is at. And everyone has different levels of a basal metabolic rate, for example, right? So if your basal metabolic rate is let's just forget about that. Let's just look at your maintenance calories, right? Basal metabolic rate is how many calories your body's basically burning just to keep the lights on, right? So about 60 to 70% of your total calories are going to be burned just by you doing nothing, right? And that's where lean muscle comes in so handy, because it burns so many calories just to keep it on your body. But that other 30% then is your daily movements, it's your exercise, right? And it's a thermic effect of food, right? So eating high protein and even fiber will get your body to burn more calories, right? So let's just say you think you know where your maintenance calories are, yet you're either, number one, stuck with fat loss. So you plateaued and you're not losing any more fat, and you've been stuck there for a while, and it's frustrating the shit out of you because you're trying to restrict, you're trying to cut back, but then you're either A, overdoing it on the weekends, or B, you think that you're eating healthy, but actually you're over consuming, or C, this could be a combination of all these, your metabolism is just underdeveloped and you can't get away with enough calories to sustain and to lose weight. You know, you're eating a certain amount of calories and you have to go lower than that, which let's just say your maintenance calories are 1,500. You have to go down to 1,000 calories to lose weight. You're not going to be able to achieve that, right? So the real goal for you should be to intuitive eat, right? So tracking calories, tracking macros. Look, it is really important to understand. People want to know the answer when it comes to, right, how many carbs should I have? How many grams of fat? How many grams of protein should I have? And how many calories should I be having to hit my goal, right? And fats and carbs, number one, they make no difference to body composition, right? So when protein and calories are equated for, when you're hitting a certain amount of protein, enough protein to hit, let's say your goal is fat loss, you want to be having a bare minimum of, let's say, 2 grams of protein per kilo of your body. Let's do pounds. 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Minimum, bare minimum, I would say a little bit more to play it safe, maybe 1 point. Let's just say, because it's easy to calculate, right? 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And you want to be in a calorie deficit of 10% minimum below your maintenance calories, up to 25% max. Let's just say 20%, right? So if your maintenance calories are 2,000, then you need to be in a deficit of at least 200, right? Because that's 10% below the 2,000 for you to lose weight at a minimum. So you need to be in a maximum of like 1,800 calories for you to lose weight, and having at least 2 grams of protein 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Sorry, I get confused with the kilos and pounds. And then with the fats and carbs, that's personal preference, right? So that's why I said you've got to understand, right, how foods make you feel, right, in terms of fats and carbs, right? You could be eating, low carbs and having a good amount of fat, like eating carnivore, keto-ish, or just, look, I feel good having low carbs. I feel good eating, meat, avocado, vegetables, and then, having some carbs in the evening or whatever, some fruit, rice, oats I have in the morning, but I have like moderate to low carbs and I feel good having, more fats in there, right? Great, fantastic. You could be someone who basically does better when they have higher carbs and lower fats, right? So you could be someone who has carbs every single meal, right? I have my oats, I have my rice, I have my potatoes, I have my rice cakes, and even on the weekends, I eat some pizza or whatever, but I hit my protein, I stay within my calories, and I don't have a great deal of fats, right? I don't add a lot of fats to my foods, and I feel fantastic. Awesome. So it's personal preference in terms of how you feel, right? It doesn't make any difference to body composition. I want to reinforce that, fats and carbs, right? In terms of fat loss or building muscle. It's just calories and how much protein you're having. So what actually is going to work for you, my friend, right? And it really depends on the individual, of course, but I want to give some generalities here based on all the people I've coached. And when you look at the data, right? Like I said, was at my, I'll just say how it is. I was at my fattest. I wasn't fat when I was tracking everything meticulously, right? But that doesn't mean you using it as a tool is going to help you stay on track at times for a specific goal. But what actually works, right, is you having a simple meal structure as opposed to trying to get the macro split absolutely perfect. A lot of people are simply not having complete meals. So they find themselves getting really, really hungry in the evenings or in between meals. They find themselves craving snacks. Now, a lot of that is going to be emotional, but some of it could be a very tactical thing where they're just not having complete meals. In other words, they're not having an adequate amount of protein, complete proteins, minerals, and even fiber with each meal. Fiber is not essential in my opinion, but it does help when you're having like a good amount of vegetables each meal, for example. It's going to help keep you more satiated on top of the protein, and having minerals as well, right? So you'll get a lot of the minerals contained in foods like grass-fed red meats, even having, some added fats as well, like a little bit of added fat, like it might be a little bit of avocado or just some of the oil that you cook in, like olive oil or ghee oil. So those proteins, the fats and the fiber, like vegetables, for example, a lot of people not having an adequate amount of those things each meal, and then they're going to feel hungry and ravenous all the time, right? So they haven't got that proper meal structure. They're trying to get the perfect macro split, but they're not focusing on the quality of the food that they're having, right? Each meal, and even sodium as well. Not having enough salt each meal, right? Especially if you're eating mainly whole foods. It's very common for people who have primarily whole foods to not have enough sodium. And then that's going to, you might even get a little bit dehydrated from doing that, but you're not going to have the energy. You're not going to feel as satiated. You might even get more cravings for sugar when you're not having as much salt. And then you're focusing too much on the numbers and sometimes the goal of losing weight. And you're not actually hammering home enough on where I got to the level I'm at now is eating for energy, for performance, in the gym in particular, and really bringing it back down to health, right? How are you feeling when you're eating certain foods? Like, how do you feel when you have a day where you have maybe less carbs in the daytime, but you're still having complete meals, so you're still having plenty of protein like meat and fats and maybe even fiber, but you're having lower carbs? Have you ever tried to play around with that? So you may be doing that and see how you feel. Do you feel more energetic? Do you find that your sleep's impacted when you do that? Do you find you perform well in the gym if you have carbs before training or maybe even the night before? Or do you notice you one of those people that needs a bit of sugar? Like, for example, a lot of females get this, need a quick carb fix, even if it's like a protein shake with a bit of fruit before training, and they actually feel stronger, right? Because women are built a bit differently with their hormone profile. Like, have you actually paid attention to these things? Because using macros and hitting your fats, carbs, protein, and calories is not going to get you that understanding of how foods make you feel and why you're eating certain foods and why maybe you're hitting the off button every weekend, right? Is that an environmental thing? So, all these things need to be taken into account. And also metabolism. I know I keep coming back to this, but if you find that you're not getting lean and you've been stuck at where you're at, you quite simply haven't optimized your metabolism and got your body burning more calories by itself, which is why people need to go through a process of, yes, still tracking calories and macros when you're doing this, right? So you know where you're at and you're figuring out, okay, I'm managing to maintain my weight or go up a little bit in weight and build muscle, because you need to go through a period of doing this where you're building muscle and you're focusing on that for a good 3 to 6 months strategically, and you're getting stronger. And if you're doing it right, you should notice that you're actually not getting those cravings as much. Your sleep is improving, right? Especially if you get issues with sleep. You're getting stronger. So really making that the number one focus. I am going to hit these PBs. I'm going to set myself these targets like I do with some clients, and I'm going to hit them over this period. And you need to be eating enough to do that. You need to be maintaining weight or in a little bit of a surplus to be able to achieve that. Good luck hitting PBs in a deficit. Highly unlikely you're going to do that, right? If you do, you're going to run yourself into the ground. So that's why a lot of people need to go through a period of doing that. But the thing that really holds them back is they might know and have the knowledge of the calories, macros, and everything else, but they're holding back because they're worried about gaining fat when they maybe eat a bit more food or they eat more to fuel their body, hit the PBs, and build the muscle. So what I'm trying to say is reverse dieting is what 90% of people need to do, right? So if you find yourself in the all or nothing mentality, you find yourself in the emotional eating or binge eating, destructive self-sabotage pattern, and this is a big thing as well. You might be one of those people that doesn't track all the time and you're extreme. So you're either all in with tracking. This is a big thing. You're all in with tracking, and then you're going to the gym and you're smashing your targets, you're losing a bit of weight, and then you're all out. So I'm not tracking anymore. I'm on holiday, or I'm just my usual day-to-day. I give up with that. That was too hard. And then I'm going to go back into second gear or just stop momentum altogether. And then I'm going to gain a bunch of fat again and be back to square one. So you could just be an extreme person with that. And that's something that needs to be fixed. You need this kind of person I'm speaking to needs a solid year of consistency. You're taking the wrong approach. And there's so many factors there. You're just taking the wrong approach with your training, nutrition, and you haven't built that foundation. But for the other person who is tracking and is continuously finding themselves in those patterns where it's like, oh man, I'm eating a bit in the evenings, the cravings after food, I'm snacking too much, or I feel like I'm doing the right stuff, but I'm stuck and I'm not losing the fat. I'm just not seeing my body respond. It could even be building muscle. You need to go through that process of building the foundation, building muscle for a solid 3 to 6 months. And everything changes when you do that properly. And even if you just build muscle, for example, and your fat didn't change much, right? You're still going to look and feel better. And then when the time comes, once you've done it right, and you've reversed the damage of what you've been doing with yo-yo dieting or, all or nothing self-sabotage behaviors, losing a bit of fat, gaining the back, then you're in a position where you can get away with more calories because you focus on building muscle and sped your metabolism up. Naturally, you're going to improve some of that relationship with food and some of those poor behaviors because you would have balanced out your hormones more and you wouldn't have felt restricted once you've done that the right way, right? In terms of fueling your body more. You would have hit some PBs as well, right? And as a side effect of that, built more muscle and you'll look better. And then when you try to lose body fat, then yes, okay, meticulous tracking, weighing your food and everything else, that's non-negotiable, by the way. If you want to get shredded, if I wanted to get shredded now and lean, yes, I would definitely track. But that's not going to keep you lean. It's a different conversation when it comes to keeping you lean, right? So to stay lean, once you've done what I said, then you've built your metabolism up, then you basically then are in a position where it's easier to get lean and you can get away with more calories. You've, improved a lot of those poor behaviors. And then you basically, all you need to do then is just, cut back a little bit on certain foods, or even just get meticulous with tracking food. Okay, what I'm trying to say here is after, say, 6 months of focusing on building, for example, your metabolic rate, like your body's going to be burning on average anywhere between 250 to 500 calories more a day, right? When you do it properly. Imagine that. So what happens then with a lot of clients once they've gone through that process, let's say 6 months, imagine just the top end, right? 500 calories. Your body's burning that more by you doing no extra. Just because you've knuckled down, put the work in, built muscle and developed your metabolism, then all you've got to do is basically, so then you've had to increase your calories by 500 a day, let's just say, right? But you're maintaining weight and looking better and feeling better. So then if you take the calories down by 500, right? You can even do less than that, depending on how much you weigh and your maintenance calories. So then you go back to the original calories you were eating 6 months prior, if you're still with me, and boom, you start losing fat and it feels easy and your hormones are in a better position. I can't stress that enough. Then your hormones are balanced out more, right? You haven't got that constant fluctuation of like a massive surge of the stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline from over restricting calories and overtraining and punishing yourself because you're sabotaging on weekends or just in general, right? So then your testosterone levels are higher. It depends then all the other hormones with females, estrogen, progesterone. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Your stress hormones are more balanced out. You're eating and you've educated yourself along the way, like I get clients to do along the way, in terms of, going back to the macros and calories, how they feel when they eat a certain amount of carbohydrates and certain types of carbohydrates, which looks different for everyone. They add in more essential fats or whatever, and then they notice that they feel way better. And then their serotonin levels are naturally higher when they, for example, eat, because some people are like afraid of carbs, right? They eat more carbohydrates just in the evening, for example, like I do, and boom, they relax more in the evenings, they get better sleep, and they kind of look forward to that little carb hit, right? And they've got into the pattern maybe of earning their carbohydrates, right? Instead of restricting carbohydrates, they earn them, and then bang, when you eat more carbohydrates, generally, when you're doing it properly, you get more serotonin, and that helps you feel more relaxed, and you just feel better, right? And you sleep better and stuff. So there's all these knock-on effects, and it always comes down to that foundation of health, right? So I'm going to wrap it up there just to summarize, right? I know that was a lot of information, a lot of kind of insights, but macros and calories are not the answer to you getting to the next level with your physique, with your health, with your fat loss, with building muscle. That is just a really good tool to use, tracking. And I want to just be clear here. Everyone should use that. Pretty much most people should use that as a starting point and as a tool for you to get to the next level. What gets measured can get managed. When you're tracking, you're aware. Tracking is like teaching a man how to fish, right? You're educating yourself. And when you teach someone how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. Giving someone a diet plan, handing someone a diet plan, for example, it's not teaching them anything, right? It's giving them a fish and feeding them for a day. So that's why it can be so valuable having that as a tool. But when it comes to you getting to the level where it's automatic and it feels easy, and you no longer have to constantly second guess things with your nutrition and overthink things, because it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of pain, and it's a lot of, it leaves you overwhelmed when you're constantly guessing with the nutrition and macros and calories and thinking that the numbers game is going to get you that long-term next level result that you want. It doesn't. To break free of that, it's got to come down to the behaviors, mindful eating, breaking free of mindless eating, for example, right? And that can help. Tracking can help with that as well. When you're like snacking as you're cooking your meal, like you're eating some of the food before you're cooking it or whatever. And when you're not tracking, you're not aware of it, but then you put it in there and you're aware of it and you go, okay. And you think twice about those snacks. Great. But when it comes to another example of most people are scrolling on their phone when they're eating, right? Or they're sitting in front of the TV, stuff in their face, you're going to eat more when you're doing that, right? And even if you're tracking your food, you're still going to eat more at the time because you're not as mindful. And chewing your food is a huge part of digestion, for example, right? Breaking the food down, taking your time to eat your meal. So these are all examples of mindful eating and improving your relationship with food, as opposed to focusing just purely on the mechanistic value of food, which is just calories, macros, tracking, which is a great tool, but it doesn't get you to where you need to be, which is the behavioral aspect of food, why you eat, how certain foods make you feel, connecting the dots to health, how foods impact your day to day, your energy levels, your mental clarity, even your libido, your performance in the gym, your sleep. We could keep going down the list. And that's how I got to where I'm at now, was by doing the hard work. You don't have to go through all that pain I went through, though, with binge eating necessarily, but I went through it the hard way. And a lot of people who actually, my peers at the time who were doing the bodybuilding stuff, right, they never recovered. And there's a dark side to that, right? They never recovered because they went so extreme, like a lot of people do, but to another level when you're competing, right? You're going so extreme, you're restricting, you're getting your body into a place which is unhealthy. And then if you haven't built that foundation, which a lot of us didn't, I didn't, you haven't built your relationship with food to a point where it's kind of unbreakable, then that can be a major, major problem. And you never recover from it, right? Because it can trigger off these really bad behaviors. And that's kind of like another conversation. So just to wrap this up, calories and macros are not the answer. Okay. You need to develop your metabolism to make it a lot easier. You need to basically get to a point where you're not getting as many cravings and you have a desire to eat more whole foods. And the strategy you have to do that is by eating more whole foods and having a strategy with that, right? And adding in certain types of proteins, fats, even certain types of fibers and vegetables, depending on the person. Making sure you're getting all the essential minerals that you need, and even carbohydrates. Not all carbs are treated equally. Single ingredient carbohydrates, a lot of people thrive off carb cycling, for example, right? There's lots of different variables you can add in there. But the very simple thing is you need to be getting to a place where you're eating primarily whole foods, minimizing ultra-processed foods, your metabolism developed like mine is now, where it's actually my maintenance calories, like I said earlier, are like 3,700-ish. I'm going to figure that out this week when I get back to tracking. 3,700, 3,800-ish, based on me doing 12,000 steps a day on average, about 3,800. So it's very hard to overeat, right? And to be in a deficit is easy because all I got to do is eat 3,400 calories, which I still will find quite challenging doing that, by the way, right? Because I'm used to eating more, but it's much easier. And then you're in a place then where you're fueling your body because you're eating more. Because I'm eating a lot of calories now, yes, it's not good constantly being in the surplus because I'm eating primarily whole foods. My body's thriving from that. When you're eating more fuel and your metabolism and body, and you have to move a decent amount to do this as well. It's not just metabolism and strength training. You have to, if you sit on your ass all day, that's not good, right? You have to move day to day, right? And factor movement into your day. But when you get to that place, it's very easy and everything else then becomes a byproduct. So the fat loss and being lean for me now is the byproduct of me developing my metabolism, enjoying training. I enjoy it, train every day, love it, and get into a place where the self-discipline with food becomes enjoyable. And with training, self-discipline in general is enjoyable because all of the benefits that it gives me, every aspect of my life has transformed from me tracking my sleep, right? Optimizing my sleep, going for a period of time where I'm tracking my food, right? And having that understanding, but then getting to that next level and improving my relationship with food, my relationship with myself, and eating more whole foods and adding instead of subtracting, adding in those whole foods, help me overcome binge eating, adding in more protein, and adding in more vegetables at the time as well really, really helped. Although I don't eat vegetables now, that's another conversation. Naturally made me feel more satiated. Then I started feeling better. Then the self-discipline became enjoyable. Then over time, I broke free of the desire to eat the UPF, the ultra-processed food, right? So look, I'm going to wrap this up there. Ladies and gents, give me a rating and review. It'd be a massive help. iTunes, they don't make it easy, right? On iTunes, it'd be great if you can do it on there. Go to the podcast app, go into Optimize Your Body podcast, scroll to the bottom, just scroll down and it gives you the option at the bottom to the rating and review. Do the same on Spotify. You listen on Spotify, it's easy. You just literally tap the stars and give me a rating. Like this and comment beneath on YouTube. I'd love to know what your feedback is. Comment beneath with your biggest takeaway or any questions you've got. And don't forget, the link is in the show notes if you want a free metabolic assessment. Until next time, over and out.